Well, welcome to the 700 Club. U.S. officials filed criminal charges against the leader of Hamas. They did that back in February, and that indictment just got unsealed. Attorney General Merrick Garland called it the deadliest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust.
Merrick listed crimes of murdering children and the elderly, kidnapping, sexual violence against women, and more, all done in an attempt to destroy the state of Israel. CBN's Julie Stahl reports.
The U.S. filed criminal charges against top Hamas leaders, signaling that America is no longer just negotiating with terrorists for a ceasefire deal, but is now out to punish them for their murderous crimes.
Those defendants, armed with weapons, political support, and funding from the government of Iran and support from Hezbollah, have led Hamas's efforts to destroy the state of Israel and murder civilians in support of that aim.
U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland described in graphic detail Hamas's crimes on October 7th.
They murdered entire families. They murdered the elderly, and they murdered young children. They weaponized sexual violence against women. On October 7th, Hamas terrorists murdered nearly 1,200 people, including over 40 Americans, and kidnapped hundreds of civilians. They perpetrated the deadliest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust.
Meanwhile, the U.S. says it's more urgent than ever to put together a ceasefire deal both sides will accept.
We are working day and night to try to get an agreement over the line because we believe an agreement is manifestly in the interests of all the parties involved.
The latest sticking point, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's insistence that Israeli troops remain on the Philadelphia corridor along Gaza's border with Egypt. Without an IDF presence, Hamas could resume smuggling in weapons and quickly rearm itself and once again threaten Israel.
Philadelphia corridor. This is the oxygen and armament of Hamas. This corridor is different from other corridors, from other places. It is central. It determines our entire future.
Leading opposition Knesset member Benny Gantz accuses Netanyahu of overstating the importance of staying in the Philadelphia corridor.
The Philadelphia corridor is an operational challenge, but is not an existential threat to the state of Israel. Iran's axis of evil is the existential threat to us.
The issue causing an uproar in segments of Israeli society between those who demand an immediate hostage deal and those who believe defeating Hamas is the answer. According to the proposed deal, the first phase would be a 6-week ceasefire requiring Israel to withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor and the release of Palestinian terrorists in exchange for 20 hostages in Gaza. Of the remaining 101 hostages, about one-third are believed to be dead. Israel is supposed to be able to re-enter the area if it needs to, but Middle East expert Caroline Glick says the Americans will prevent it.
The fact is that the political realities dictate an American policy of not supporting a resumption of hostilities by Israel if Hamas breaks its word, which of course it will because it's Hamas.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And it's unfortunate we're living in those political realities. The irony of the corridor being called the Philadelphia corridor, that means brotherly love. And if there's anything other than brotherly love, it's been what's flowing across the tunnels underneath that corridor. That's the main way that Hamas has been supplied with all of these weapons. I would ask the Department of Justice to look at expanding their indictment. They've indicted the leaders. They did it back in February. It's just recently that they unsealed it to let everyone know exactly what they're trying to do. But they should follow the money. How in the world did they get enough funding to purchase this quantity of weapons? And you've got to look at Qatar. You've got to look at the senior leadership that lives there in luxury. You have to look at why are so many leaders of Hamas now billionaires? Where is all that money coming from? And I'll remind every American, a lot of that money is coming from us because they're diverting the humanitarian aid that we have supplied so generously through UNRWA and other methods. that they've diverted it into their own pockets. They've also quite clearly diverted it into these weapons. So where's the indictment supposed to land? Well, how about some of the UNRWA officials that turned the other way when it was quite obvious that they were supporting Hamas? How about Qatar? I know there's a military base there and there's some strategic value to it, but what's the strategic value where they're the funding of this war? If we're looking for peace in the Middle East, you have to look at that funding and you have to say, let's let the Department of Justice go after that.